The discussions at TechNet Cyber this year were pretty evenly focused on strategy and tactics. The tactical discussions dealt mostly with how to handle the changing cyber landscape. Chris Stuntz is solutions architect for Equinix. He tells me how he sees that landscape changing over time.
Well, traditionally, you got the ransomware attacks, you've had the insider threats, social engineering, more traditional. Now with, like, for example, all the CSPs, cloud providers, AWS and Azure, you have to worry about cloud security. And another one is IoT attacks. So you have a lot of Internet of Things, refrigerators, microwaves, everything's pretty much going online. So that just opens the door for more vulnerabilities because there's different software, different vendors, different hardware, printers, all that good stuff. But for the evolving ones, or you have the AI-driven stuff now coming out. Advanced persistent threats, kind of like state-sponsored. It's big, actually. I think Stuxnet was the 2010 was pretty much the largest and most expensive malware version, kind of a combination of that. Then you have the cyber physical attacks. Kind of the same thing with Stuxnet, did. It went after the Iranian program. Then you have, power utilities, water facilities, data centers, example. So all those things, it's not just a one-tier layer, physical security, insider threats, social engineering, cyber, everything else. So it's kind of a multi-tiered, ever-evolving, ever-changing that businesses have to adapt to go from there. So,
what kind of questions are your government partners asking you about infrastructure and how they can build and defend infrastructure that kind of defends against some of those kinds of threats?
Physical security is always the big one. We're FISMA high for most of our facilities, so they want to know about basic physical security, accreditation, government guidelines, stuff like that meets. So everything has to be, because they have their own guidelines and accreditations they have to deal with. So whenever they move from their own facilities, for example, to vendors like Equinix, they have to meet those guidelines for the transition so they can do their part. So.
Is that changing? Are the things that they are wondering about or needing to know about changing as a result of the changes that you talked about in the threat landscape?
Yeah, because a few years ago when CSP, cloud became the buzzword, everyone was migrating to the cloud. And then due to cost and everything else, they're kind of coming back a little bit on that. So they want to either do their own data center and or use vendors like us, third-party vendors, or they want to do a hybrid approach. So keep stuff on site, on-prem, cloud, a little bit of both. So everyone has their own security for that. So cloud providers have theirs, data centers have theirs, and then their own facility and government regulations. So it makes it more complex.
Are there things that those organizations can do to try to mitigate that complexity, or is it just kind of the nature of the beast based on the infrastructure kind of framework that you just laid out?
Yeah, it's kind of a combination of what they're used to and all the new regulations that are coming out to meet that. So I think a lot of them have their own departments, people that's all they do is concentrate on that physical aspect and all the regulations, make sure that's what takes time to get a lot of this moving forward.
Do you expect to see more organizations in government thinking about transitioning back to data center environments, or do you think we've kind of reached that point of critical mass and the posture that a lot of agencies have now is what they'll have moving forward?
What I've seen lately, let's say the last 6 months at some of the other conferences, is some of the larger agencies are actually getting out of the data center business. And because they don't want to spend that money on CapEx, they want to save a lot of that money for operational costs. So they rather have providers like Equinix, who that's all we do, and let us worry about the CapEx and the infrastructure, and they want to use their money and budget for other items like cloud provider, hybrid cloud, and some of the infrastructure they're building themselves, but they want to get out of that business.
Mm-hmm. What do you think that looks like long term? Is that a trend you expect to see continue?
Honestly, with AI and all the demands and the megawatts and power and cooling, then quantum computing is kind of right behind that. So I would say that trend's probably going to stay.